Emma decided to spend her very own money on the entire series of Emergency. She's been watching it on TV at her grandmother's house, and it just enchanted her. So she wanted to have the whole series, and she's been viewing it ever since she got it.
So Emergency is a show created and directed by the same people who made Dragnet and Adam 12, and it runs under a similar premise. Instead of cops, this time it's firefighters, and you take a specific group of these firefighters and doctors, and you say to yourself, let's find some actual case files, and let's put these on air.
They're reenacting actual things that happened with their particular group of actors.
Okay, so Kevin Tighe and Randolph Mantooth played Roy DeSoto and Johnny Gage, and they were both trained in the paramedics program, but did not become paramedics, because I believe that would have created some problems with how they paid them. Now, out of the cast, they did have several actual firefighters, one of which was the first captain of Station 51, Captain Dick Hammer, who was actually a fire captain named Dick Hammer from the LACOFD, and then also Mike Stoker, who played Mike Stoker. Very creative there. And he was an actual firefighter who was in an actor's, I'm not sure if it was a guild or a union that allowed him to be a firefighter and also an actor. So he was the one who drove the engine because it was an actual fire engine, and they had to get someone who was actually licensed to drive it.
Today, while we're talking to you, we're drinking an actual tea from TV.
This tea has been trained as a tea.
What is the name of this tea, Emma?
Hang on.
Ripened Zhang, Camphorwood Scent Pu'er Mini Brink. We felt like drinking while we talked.
Emergency is in a similar league to Dragnet and Adam 12 because of its actual cases being used for the cases on the show. But I think that in terms of being remembered, it's a little bit more like MASH, because the way that they marketed it, if you find someone, like, for instance, my mother here, who was around in the 70s and 80s, did you have any Adam 12 toys?
I don't believe I knew of Adam 12's existence.
Did you have any Emergency toys? Did your brothers?
We probably had some tiny Hot Wheels ambulances. I watched the show because I thought Gage was cute. That's all.
But if you ask the male children of the 70s and 80s, you would probably get a different answer. For instance, my father, his brother, and my older cousin all had lots of fire trucks and other firefighter items growing up.
If you are a male child of the 70s or 80s, go ahead and tell us what you thought of Emergency back then.
Or if you were just a child from the 70s or 80s who was a little bit more invested.
It was there. I watched it. I also really liked BJ and the Bear because he was cute. It's a truck driver with a monkey. And then there...
Named Bear?
Yes. There are so many things I have exposure to, but I haven't gotten around to all of them yet. We've just found Taxi. Nobody really cute on that one. But then...
There's Frasier.
Not cute, no. I have been allowing her to watch Frasier. Yes, I have. Waited till she was 14 for that. So there's a backstory with this. It seems that emergency medical personnel are a new creation as of...
Okay, so, and now we get into, hang on.
Got to take her jacket off for this discussion. It's getting serious now.
Okay. In 1970, the governor of California, Ronald Reagan, signed the Wedworth-Townsend Act into law. This act allowed nurses and doctors to perform life-saving treatment in the field instead of just at the hospital. because before then, I believe it was up to 70% of heart attack patients would die before they even reached the hospital. Before the signing of this act, the LACOFD was given permission to start a paramedic program where they trained people for several months in actual hospitals on medical procedures that emergency doctors would have performed on these people if they were there at the current time. The first episode of Emergency was actually the pilot movie, which came out in January of 1972. It was a mid-season change.
I came out in February of 1972.
That's very nice. So the television show came out 2 years after paramedics originally became a licensed part of the fire department. So there was actually about 2 years of build-up, well, more like a year of build-up for cases and just things that they would need to know in order to create a realistic show. And there's a documentary on this whole process. It's called Emergency, the Show That Saved Your Life, and it is on YouTube if you just look it up. And it has interviews with some of the actors and several paramedics and firefighters, including, I think, one of the original paramedics from California. And it's got an interview with most of them.
And now Gage looks like Jimmy Stewart. Because it's been some 50 years since he was on there.
2 years since Emergency
Yes,
premiered.
52 years. So para means alongside, and a medic is a medical person. So these people are alongside the medical people, like nurses and doctors. Because the nurses and doctors need to stay where they are. They can't be go gallivanting out to get people.
Right. Which was... The point of Emergency was... It was a joint operation in order to show the American public, hey, this is what you could have. Because I believe in 1972, not many states had a paramedic program other than California. It was a very new thing. So Emergency was sort of a, this is what you could have. And this is what your fire department could look like.
The media have been shaping your views of the world for some time. This was an example of using that for good. Just also know they use it for whatever they want to.
If you watch it on reruns on cable, or if you just watched it when it originally came out, I'd recommend getting the whole set because it doesn't come on many stations on cable anymore. Also, if you're interested in
Emergency stuff?
Yeah, emergency stuff, because it's, from what I can tell, it's pretty realistic, but then again, I've never been an emergency doctor or a paramedic, so.
She's 14. Now you have a cousin who is in fact becoming a paramedic.
I have a cousin who is a firefighter and is becoming a paramedic, and he likes emergency, so.
Yeah. And probably if your parents are having a birthday, this might be a fine gift for them. So that they can go back in time and tell you all about the 80s and the 70s.
Yeah, Emergency went off in 79, I think.
Yes, but they'll talk about the 80s while they're there. And then you can get Laverne and Shirley. And so many other things. Okay, until we see you again.
Make sure to make time for tea and a good book.
And a documentary.